The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Captain Arik Vale entered, his boots echoing against the crystalline floor. But it wasn't the human that commanded their attention. It was the massive obsidian wolf padding beside him on his left, and the crimson dragon coiled protectively around his shoulders on his right. Ambassador Zelthor of the Crithian Empire recoiled, his four eyes widening in disbelief. "Impossible," he hissed through his translator. "No species has ever bonded with a void wolf or a flame drake. They are instruments of chaos, not companions." Arik's weathered face remained impassive as he approached the semicircular podium, where 17 species had gathered to witness what they deemed a human's folly. Lupra, the void wolf, moved with liquid grace, her silver eyes scanning the room for threats. Rayan, the dragon, unfurled his wings slightly, the movement sending ripples of heat through the air. "They said humans couldn't survive in zero gravity without cybernetics," Arik began, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "They said we couldn't adapt to worlds with different atmospheric compositions. They said our fragile bodies would break under the pressure of deep space exploration." He paused, meeting the gaze of each council member. They were wrong about all of it. The Velkari representative, a being of pure energy contained within a containment field, pulsed with agitation. "Captain Vale, you misunderstand our concern. The beasts you claim to have tamed have decimated colonies. A void wolf pack destroyed 3 mining operations on Kepler 442b. A single flame drake reduced the terraforming station on Proxima Centauri C to ash. I don't claim to have tamed them," Arik corrected, his hand moving to rest on Lupra's head. The massive wolf, standing nearly 4 feet at the shoulder, leaned into his touch. "I earned their respect." "There's a difference." "Semantics," spat Commander Threx of the Draconian fleet, his reptilian features twisted in disgust. "Your kind always plays with words. How did you supposedly achieve this?" "Respect?" Arik's mind drifted back to the frozen wasteland of Helheim 7, where he'd first encountered Lupra. The mining expedition had gone wrong. Pirate raiders had left him stranded, wounded, with supplies meant for 3 days and a journey requiring 7. He'd stumbled upon her den while seeking shelter from a storm that would have frozen his blood solid. She'd been starving, her pack killed by the same raiders who'd attacked his crew. Instead of fighting her for the meager shelter, he'd shared his rations. Instead of seeing a monster, he'd seen a survivor. For 3 days, they'd weathered the storm together. On the 4th day, when he'd collapsed from fever and frostbite, she'd curled her massive body around him, sharing her warmth. When rescue finally came, Lupra had refused to leave his side. "I didn't try to dominate them," Arik explained, his fingers scratching behind Lupra's ear, a gesture that would have cost anyone else their hand. "Humans have a saying, respect is earned, not demanded. We spent millennia learning that lesson with the creatures of our own world. Wolves, horses, even the great cats, we didn't conquer them through force alone. We found common ground." Rain shifted on his shoulders, the dragon's serpentine neck allowing him to bring his head level with Arik's. Smoke curled from his nostrils as he regarded the assembly with ancient, intelligent eyes. The meeting with Rain had been different but no less profound. Flame drakes were said to be rage incarnate, living weapons that burned everything they encountered. Arik had found Rain trapped in a hunter's electromagnetic net on the volcanic moon of Ignis Prime, left to die as proof of a wealthy collector's prowess. Instead of finishing what the hunter started or leaving the creature to suffer, Arik had spent 12 hours carefully dismantling the net. The energy field had burned his hands, left scars that still ached in cold weather. But he'd persisted, speaking softly to the terrified dragon, promising freedom. When Rayan finally broke free, he could have incinerated Arik with a single breath. Instead, he'd studied the human with those impossibly old eyes and lowered his head in acknowledgement. "Your species conquers through force," Arik continued, his gaze sweeping across the council. "You see the universe as something to be dominated, cataloged, controlled. Humans learned long ago that the strongest bonds aren't forged through chains." "Pretty words," Zelthor interjected, "but what you call bonding, we call risk. How can we trust that these beasts won't turn on you, on us?" Lupra growled, a sound that resonated through the chamber like distant thunder. Several council members flinched, but Arik simply rested his hand on her flank. The growl subsided immediately. "Because they choose to be here," Arik answered simply. "Every day they choose loyalty over freedom, companionship over solitude. Can you say the same about your conscripted armies? Your forced genetic modifications? The chamber erupted in protests, but the Velkari representative pulsed a deep blue, a sign of contemplation. And what would you have us learn from this, Captain Vale? Arik smiled, a rare expression that softened his battle-hardened features. That the human way isn't about subjugation. It's about partnership. You invited us to join your Galactic Council because our adaptability made us valuable. But you never understood the source of that adaptability. He gestured to Lupra and ran. We don't just survive harsh environments, we find allies in them. We don't just overcome obstacles, we turn them into opportunities. You see beasts. We see potential friends. You see chaos. We see patterns to understand. Rayan chose that moment to launch from Arik's shoulders, his wings spreading to their full 20-foot span. The council members scrambled backward, but the dragon simply circled the chamber once before landing gracefully beside Lupra, creating a protective triangle with Arik at the apex. Humans can't tame beasts, Arik concluded, his voice carrying a note of pride, but we can walk beside them as equals. And that, honored council members, is why you'll never truly understand us or underestimate us again. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, the Velkari representative pulsed a golden-yellow agreement. Perhaps, the being said slowly, we have much to learn from humanity after all. As the council session concluded, and Arik departed with his companions, whispers spread through the galactic networks. The human who walked with a wolf and a dragon had proven something fundamental about his species. They didn't need to be the strongest or the most technologically advanced. They simply needed to be willing to extend a hand, or a paw, or a claw, in friendship. And in the vast, often hostile expanse of the cosmos, that made all the difference.